Hi there, everybody. I'm Mary McGloin. I am one of the creators of Tech Bettys, and I am here with Alana Karen to discuss her experience as a woman in tech. So I'll let you introduce yourself and maybe describe what you do in the tech world.
Sure, yeah. I am in program management, which is basically how engineers, like helping engineers get things done. I guess is like a really basic way.
Yeah.
How to set goals, how to set timelines, how to motivate people to hit those goals, kind of all the operations, like the how you get engineering done is what program managers do.
All right.
And I lead a big team. So I'm also a lot of focus into leadership and how you motivate teams that you run to get things done.
Awesome. So what got you started in the tech world?
Well, I was back in college and I was just liberal arts, like creative writing, history major. And I got interested in what was then, to date myself, just the beginning of being able to create things on the internet. And I self-taught myself HTML and some JavaScript and started to make websites and have fun with the creativity aspect of it. And I think that's what hooked me and got me interested in, well, what were roles out there where I could keep using these skills and having fun with technology and being able to, I think, see where this world was going, because it was still, back then you just really didn't know. I guess you kind of don't know now either. But you didn't know maybe where the businesses were going to go yet and how the world was going to adapt to this new technology.
Nice. So what's your experience been like as a woman in a male dominated field like tech? Do you feel like that's had an effect, or?
It's been mixed, I would say, because in my early career, I was in organizations that were in fact female dominated. They were customer service and operations organizations. And what I would generally say, I think sometimes when people think of tech, they just think, oh, of engineers.
Yeah.
Well, there's all these different roles. And so I was in a role that, for whatever reason, leaned female. And I got to kind of grow up in a culture with strong female leadership. And it wasn't until I moved later on to more technical teams that I was like, oh yeah, this is what it's like to be the only lady in a room.
Yeah.
And what does that feel like? And you know, they're pushing back on me. And are they pushing back on me because of what I'm saying, or just because I'm a woman? And how does that feel? So I think that it's interesting. In my case, anyway, I think it's interesting because I got to at least form and kind of grow first in a culture where I didn't even really think about that. It was a demanding culture for sure. And I thought about other things. But I didn't necessarily all the time be like, oh, it's because I'm a woman.
Yeah.
And so then later on, I had more confidence when I got into these rooms where it was tilted more. And I think that as a result, my experience has probably been like better than some, because I didn't have sort of that constant questioning of myself. But I definitely did have this adjustment period where you're like, oh, this is different. And why is it different? And how much do I change versus how much do I expect the environment around me to kind of grow up and figure it out? And how much do I educate on that? I think that's all of the questions. I guess that's what I would generally sum up, is that when you're in an environment where you are the minority, you end up having to like constantly sort of ask yourself, is it me? Is it them? And if it's them, how much do I need to do?
Yeah.
And I think that that is hopefully something that will change over time. But right now, you kind of just have to know that going in and be careful to sort of self-preserve and set some boundaries about how much you'll give to an environment to teach them what to do.
So along those lines, like, do you feel like you've seen a difference in the tech world since the advent of #MeToo? Like, has that changed any of the dynamic, or? made it better,
I think what I've
worse, or
generally seen, and of course I've been in tech 20 years, so
uh,
I've been in tech since like we just purely believed in meritocracy, to starting to be aware of unconscious biases or things that may sort of impact even how that meritocracy works. And then as Me Too and last year's lessons, I think, about systemic injustice,
yeah.
particularly towards Black people, have come, I've seen this like growing awareness about the experience of others. And
Mhm.
for some of it, it can be sort of annoying and painful. Like, oh, really? Like, you just didn't know? You're surprised,
Yeah.
right? Like, for hundreds of years, like, X or Y have been oppressed this way. Like, and it can be kind of annoying, but at the same time, I saw sincerely people like for the first time be like, oh, like
Yeah.
I did not know you were experiencing that. I did not know our experience is so different.
Yeah.
And so I do think that overall awareness and education has really shifted, particularly for people who were already fancied themselves allies but hadn't thought about these things.
Yeah.
I've really seen it shift the conversation, and even how much we'll talk about these things at work, talk about them openly, sort of accept them as the reality that some people are experiencing. But what I will say, what lags are sort of like the systems themselves,
Uh-huh.
right? Like, when you look and you say, have we really changed how we hire, how we manage people, how we promote?
Yeah.
I think that, we're still sort of chipping away at some of those systems we've built for years and years and years. And so still so much further to go.
I agree. I similar experience in that realm. I'm wondering what you would say to women and girls who are interested in tech, in terms of like how they might get involved, or what jobs they might want to pursue.
Well, I would generally say go for it. If you're interested, if it's something that you want, don't let, that first class you walk into where it's all men and you're the only lady, deter you.
Yeah.
You are maybe just the first, right? You're not the only, you're just the first. Maybe you go back to your dorm or your friends, you grab some other people and you go back to that class, right? But you find your support. And it doesn't have to just be female, it could be any gender, right? Like you find your support network that will back you up and help you through and advise you on the hard days. And you chase those dreams. I've seen people, I wrote a book where I interviewed 80 women, over 80 women in tech, and they had all different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And most of them hadn't gone to CS classes.
Yeah.
You found their way to tech almost sort of happenstance, through leaps, through different things, through later in their careers deciding that that's what they wanted to do and going to classes later, and just really pursuing a desire to change the world and to have impact. And so if this is your dream, I would say go for it. And there's always a path, and don't let maybe sometimes people who would deter you. Just go back to your support group and figure out your next step.
Awesome. So I know you wrote a book, and I if you want to plug that and talk a bit about it, I think it's very cool. And I'm like, I want to read this book, but you want to talk about it a bit? Like, I know.
Oh, sure. It's called The Adventures of Women in Tech, How We Got Here and Why We Stay. And I wrote it basically because I was annoyed that I wasn't seeing the stories of a diverse set of women kind of in the middle, like they weren't the COOs at the tippy top. They weren't people having terrible experiences and leaving tech. They were somewhere in the middle, navigating their careers, having challenges, but figuring it out.
Yeah.
And those are the women that are all around me. And so whenever I would see articles that are like, do women belong in tech or whatever, I was like, come on, like, I know we do, we're here. And so I went out, I interviewed women I knew. I also found other women and got introduced to other women, and, just really collected stories that I wish I'd known earlier in my career that would have helped me feel like I belonged and like I wasn't so alone, and maybe helped me out on some of those hard days. So yeah, it's a fun book, I think, and hopefully it will speak to women, whether they are just starting to think about getting into tech or whether they're already there and looking for support.
So where can you get the book? If I want
It's available pretty much anywhere, the usual places you would find books, like Amazon, bookshop.org, wherever you're looking, you can order it through your local bookstore. And if you want more information about it or places to get it, you can go to my website, alanakaren.com.
Oh, awesome. Okay. I'll try to put a link on that at the bottom.
Okay. Thank you.
So is there anything you want to say that I didn't ask, or that you feel like you really want people to know who are watching this?
Well, I think I would just plug that, like, right now, it's a really interesting time because we are seeing that women were impacted so heavily by COVID. And that makes sense. I mean, you take something where we've been the traditional caretakers for society for centuries, and it's a global pandemic. Of course, we're going to have caretaking responsibilities, and it's going to impact us being able to be in the labor force. But as we are starting to see vaccines more widely available, I'd love to see tech step up to seize this moment and say, like, okay, here are all these women who are going to re-enter the workforce. How can we help them get going again? And I think historically, we haven't always been great at that, because I think there's just always been so many candidates, and it was easy to sort of, think that someone with a gap on their resume wasn't as hardworking or whatever it was. And I think that this period of time is just super special in terms of the opportunity, both for the candidates themselves and also for tech to say, come on, we can really transform both ourselves and these women's careers by thinking about how to get them going again. So it's just my little plug, wherever you are, whether you're hiring, whether you're a candidate, to think about tech and think about ways that we could transform it together and take some chances and get some candidates going again.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for doing this interview. I really appreciate your time, and I'm definitely going to check out your book, and I'll let you know when this is up. And
Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this. I think anything where you're sharing more stories, it's really awesome, because like I said earlier, I think there's, you just never know how that example is going to inspire someone.
It's true. When hopefully these will, hopefully. So happy Women's History Month. Happy yesterday being International Women's Day. And
we got to take our days where we got them. Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Good luck with this.
Thank you. Bye-bye.